Okay, so let's begin with the dream argument that was presented by this gentleman here, who is René Descartes. Okay, and we're going to start to look at some of the questions that we covered a little bit in the simulated reality course, but we're going to be covering in a lot more detail here. So specifically, we're going to take an introduction to his argument, and then we're going to give a more detailed interpretation of the argument. So we'll look at the sort of on the face value of what he says, and then go into more detail about how we can understand really what he means. Okay. So as an introduction to the dream argument, René Descartes wrote his work Meditations on First Philosophy, and he engaged in what he called methodological and epistemological skepticism. Now, these are two very interesting words. So, methodological is just how you would define, methodology, how you would define the word normally. But epistemology relates to knowledge and how we acquire knowledge and our understanding of knowledge. So he really was asking the question, what does he know? What can he know and what can he not know? And it really did hinge on the question, how can I know I'm not dreaming? How can I know that any of this is real? If I'm sat in a room here, how do I know this desk is real or just a dream? How do I know I'm dreaming now when I'm making this course? He wasn't the first to ask this kind of question. There were ancient Chinese philosophers and ancient Greek philosophers such as Plato, who looked at these kind of questions about dreaming and how reality isn't actually real. But he was the first to systematically analyze and develop the argument into what became known as his dream argument. So the idea of dreaming is something that can be used to doubt our reality. I mentioned this in the computer simulation course, because one of the questions was, how can we know we're not just all dreaming right now? We might be in a computer simulation, but we could also just be dreaming. This is the one of the fundamental questions that we asked. One of the main parts of Descartes' argument is that dreams are indistinguishable from real life, and that's what really hinges upon his argument. So he says that you cannot tell the difference between dreaming and being awake. So if you cannot tell the difference, then you don't know truly for sure whether or not you are dreaming or whether or not you're awake. Okay, so that's what he said. So as a more formal representation, Descartes begins his dream arguments by saying that dreams are indeed indistinguishable from reality. I cannot tell. When I'm in a dream, I do not know that I'm dreaming. When I'm in reality, I do not know if I'm dreaming or not. Okay? So according to Descartes, nothing can rule out my being duped into believing I'm having some kind of experience X, when in reality I'm in the state Y, either the state dreaming or being awake, that kind of mental state. Hence, therefore, I cannot have knowledge of Z. Z being the thing that I am viewing. So if I'm having a dream that I'm sat at this desk, okay, I can be duped into believing that that this is in reality. If I'm in a dream, this could be completely fake and not real, okay? And in reality, I'm dreaming. So duped into having an experience X, duped into believing this desk is real and the experience of touching this desk is a real experience, when in reality I'm in the state Y being in a dream state. Okay, I'm not in reality. Therefore, I cannot have any knowledge of anything. Effectively, you can't acquire knowledge if the experience you are gaining the knowledge from is actually a representation, isn't real, it's a dream. So this is the fundamental question that Descartes wanted to know. How can we ever know anything? How can we have any knowledge of anything if there's no way of being able to tell if we're in a dream or if we're awake? That's the problem. So I cannot know if I'm not dreaming. There's nothing to say that I'm not dreaming, effectively. So as a discussion task for you, I want to just really look at what Descartes says. He effectively says, premise one, it's indistinguishable between dreaming and being awake. I cannot know the difference between dreaming and being awake, and therefore, as a conclusion, there is nothing to suggest that I am not dreaming now. He doesn't actually make the argument that he is definitely dreaming now. He isn't proving that he's in a dream. That's not what the dream argument is trying to say. What he's trying to say is there is nothing to suggest that I'm not in a dream. And if there's nothing to suggest that I'm not in a dream, I cannot be, solidly confident in my knowledge, in anything that I know. And that's what his argument really is about. So if you're in a room with Descartes, what would you say to try and convince him that you are not dreaming? Now that is a very interesting question. So if you're with Descartes, he is convinced that he cannot know whether or not he's in a dream or whether or not he's awake. So you're sat in a room with Descartes. What would you say to him to try and convince him of the fact that he is not dreaming, or convince him that he is dreaming? What would you say? And then, more formally, are there any ways you can criticise this argument? Are there any ways you could attack this argument? Come to some kind of counterexample, because that's what we're going to do in the next lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to look at the criticisms of Descartes' dream argument, and we're going to analyse what, the kind of things. Can we actually be sure whether or not we're dreaming? Some people argue that we can be a bit more sure than Descartes. So that's what we're going to do in the next lesson.